Welcome to Tirana Connectivity Forum 2020. This year is our 6th edition, and the subject will be about pandemic and connectivity. And guess what? It is because of the pandemic that we were not even sure at the beginning of this year that we will have the possibility to organize this forum. In February, when we were planning about the invitees, about the program, we realized that we will not be able to bring them here in Tirana. So we thought, what should we do? How could we do it? Should we postpone it for the next year? Should we wait until the pandemic is over? But we thought, wait a minute. Let's do what we preach. We preach about connectivity. So let's move from physical connectivity to online, to digital connections. And we decided to do it online. So this forum will be online. You can follow it in Cooperation and Development Institute media, online media, as well as in Euronews Albania live. So this is our year's innovation. We are working very closely with the media. But the forum, the DNA of the forum stays the same. This year, we will have outstanding personalities that will address the forum and discuss with us, such as the President Romano Prodi, who will discuss about the connectivity in South Adriatic region between Italy and the eastern shores of the sea, or of this lake, as he calls it. We will have Commissioner Varhelyi, who will talk about connectivity and enlargement, how they interact, how connectivity helps growth and enlargement of the region. We will have the privilege to discuss with Professor Branko Milanovic from Washington. He will discuss, we will debate about the connections and the interaction between connectivity and inequalities, and how the pandemic can impact them. We will have the member of Bundestag, Mr. Peter Beyer, talking about how the Berlin process has contributed to better connectivity between the region and the EU, and also on regional cooperation, on stronger regional cooperation, as well as mentioning the latest developments regarding Trump administration getting more and more involved in the connectivity in Southeast Europe. So this is how the TCF2020 will be. We have kept our traditional structure. During the first day, we will discuss about the impact of pandemics in the infrastructure projects, as well as in the business in the Balkan Peninsula. On the second day, we will talk about how the pandemic may impact the development model of our region. We will end with a side event. We will try almost literally connect to the future, because in this side event, we will talk about our youth. What should we do so that they stay here, they stay in their homes, and they have their future in here. Before I leave the floor, I would like to thank our long-term partners, Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, Friedrich Ebert Stiftung, and Hans Seidel Stiftung, that have been with us for 6 years. I'd like also to thank Regional Cooperation Council and Regional Youth Cooperation Office for the support of this year's forum. As I mentioned, this forum, you can follow it on Cooperation and Development Institute online media, as well as on Euronews Albania Live. And now, I leave the floor to the political foundations. See you later.
Dear colleagues, dear friends, it's my great pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of Friedrich Ebert Stiftung Tirana office to this year's Tirana Connectivity Forum. This year's Connectivity Forum takes place in a very different situation than last year's. And when we met last year in Tirana, there were lots of questions to all the experts gathered to predict what was about to happen in the following months. And of course, no one predicted the devastating earthquake in November last year. And certainly no one would have thought that the global pandemic would turn our world upside down. Now we're here speaking online, unfortunately, and I guess this year we're all a bit more cautious with our predictions. Nevertheless, also this year there are many open questions, and we have seen that there is nothing set in stone. That change can come quickly, and that it depends on responsible actors and actually on all of us how this change may look like. In March this year, both North Macedonia and Albania received the long-awaited positive signal from Brussels that accession talks can be opened for Albania with another set of conditions. But it was a yes, something so important that it is really tragic that the news back then got almost completely consumed by Corona's first peak. Now here we are and awaiting maybe Corona's second peak, we don't know, and awaiting also the next step in the integration process, the first intergovernmental conferences for North Macedonia and Albania. At the same time, the question about these intergovernmental conferences is part of a much bigger set of questions, of course, concerning not only the future of Southeastern European countries, but of the entire continent and the European Union and actually the European idea. Something which has become very obvious again this year. This year, we've witnessed terrible failures, actually, and thought European solidarity was dying, just to see it re-emerge again. We have seen what happens when states retreat to the national realm, when borders were closed, when trade was limited, and we have also seen what is possible if Europe works together and is united, which shoots support schemes and recovery schemes. There are many open questions for all Europe. How to save our democracies within the European Union and also in the entire continent, how to stop the disastrous European migration policy, how to stabilize our economies, and how to increase social cohesion all over. In this situation, we hope that we can all learn lessons from this maybe crazy year. The lesson that a Europe united is a stronger and a better Europe, that a Europe of solidarity is the better Europe. And that, of course, also means an open European Union. This, of course, also means the integration of Southeast Europe into the EU. Connectivity plays a significant role in this context. The connectivity among the countries in Southeast Europe has also developed in this year, and we hope that this will continue to improve, simultaneously, of course, with progress towards EU accession. This is why this forum is of such a value and why we as FES are happy we can support it with, along with the other German political foundations here in Albania. So even though we cannot and should not predict much at this moment, as we know the next year can look very different from what we believe now, we all, as professionals and as citizens, can play our part and learn from this year how to work together and practice solidarity and ever increase connectivity. I would like to thank the organizers of this forum, mainly Chrisella and Ardian Hackaj from CDI, our partners and their team. You have gathered an incredibly interesting group of experts and speakers for this forum, and we are all very excited to hear them. And thanks, of course, also to Konrad Adenauer Foundation and Seidel Foundation, and to the German Embassy Tirana for partnering with us on this event.
Your Excellencies, dear colleagues from the Cooperation and Development Institute, dear colleagues of the Friedrich Ebert Stiftung and the Seidel Stiftung, distinguished panelists, guests, ladies and gentlemen. The world, Europe and the Western Balkans are firmly under the grip of the COVID-19 pandemic. So far, the year 2020 has shown us all just how vulnerable we are, not just as people, but also our economies and our ways of life. While most of us, including me, took it lightly at first, a global chain reaction soon followed, such that we have not witnessed for generations. Concerts, trade fairs, conferences have been cancelled and borders closed. The restrictions on public life and the lockdown have made it difficult or even impossible to maintain interpersonal relationships. Particularly here in the region, this had and continues to have a massive impact on the state institutions, the private sector, as well as supply chain. These emergency measures have not only frozen our significantly slowed down construction and infrastructure projects, but also democratic processes and reform projects. People's dissatisfaction with the effects and partly with the handling of the COVID-19 pandemic can be seen in the July demonstrations in Serbia. We can also assume that in the case of a second wave of the virus, the population will scarcely comply with quarantine measures and contact restrictions and could openly express displeasure. What is certain is that the COVID-19 pandemic is global and is thus a cross-border problem. The global search for a vaccine and the different ways in which countries and their governments deal with it bears testimony to the world's eagerness to combat it and find a solution. The pandemic has also unleashed a wave of solidarity. Those economies that were less affected or more economically stable sent their doctors and medical professionals to the crisis regions. Masks, disinfectants, and other utensils were transported around the world, often seen as an act of rescue, and received with great gratitude. We can all recall how Albania sent doctors and nurses to northern Italy at the beginning of the pandemic. The pandemic has also revealed how interconnected the world is in which we live, but also how vulnerable these ties are, as well as the ramifications that ensure from breaking these bridges of exchange. Yet, how can we manage and live with the virus? Despite infection rates having dropped in early summer and returning to some form of normality, societies now face a renewed increase in the infection rate. The opening of educational institutions and a return to work have exacerbated this. The future now seems more uncertain than ever. The question about what a corona future could look like is therefore of great importance. What changes and reforms are urgently needed in the future to ensure continued stability, growth, and security? The virus is not only a litmus test for intergovernmental relations, it also reveals a deep rift in society between those who trust the government and its measures and those who question them, with the latter casting doubt upon the dangers and announcing their resentment during protests on social networks. Many professional groups, associations, and industries also publicly expressed their displeasure, criticizing the way COVID is managed and wanting to draw attention to their situation. Nevertheless, the COVID-19 pandemic has arguably had positive side effects too. Many changes that previously seemed impossible because necessary all at once. Examples of this are the growing trend for professional work to be carried out from home. Many meetings, conferences, or university lectures were also held digitally, and we can often see a willingness to perpetuate this to some extent. A lot has changed in everyday life as well. Many countries and cities around the world have seen a surge in bike lanes. People increasingly pay with cards or completely contactless. The air quality has improved in many cities, and people are supporting their local providers out of solidarity. No matter whether that be restaurants or farmers, neighbors, friends, or relatives in need. After all, this year's Tirana Connectivity Forum is dedicated to understanding these new challenges that we are facing and showing new ways to continue to master the crisis in the future. In doing so, it not only focuses on the threats associated with the pandemic, but also on the opportunities. I'm very grateful that CDI has organized this outstanding event, which is now an established annual event that serves as a meeting point for experts, academics, NGOs, and political decision makers in the Western Balkan 6 countries and beyond, who deal with EU integration, intergovernmental politics in the Balkans, and worldwide networking. As the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, we're immensely proud and thankful to support the Tirana Connectivity Forum with our contribution. As a German political foundation, we fully support the Berlin process initiated by Chancellor Angela Merkel, which aims at improving regional cooperation in the Western Balkans on issues pertaining to infrastructure and economic development. If you look at the results and the media attention of the last event, it is safe to say that the Tirana Connectivity Forum is important in supporting this aim. As a political foundation, we cannot support the infrastructure projects directly, yet we can still promote awareness and repeatedly emphasize the significance and importance of infrastructure for a more connected world and as a basis for better mutual understanding of countries and cultures, particularly here in the region. For us at the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, this is an important step towards enhanced international cooperation, understanding, and more understanding for another and a prosperous society. Thank you all for your attention, and I wish us all a great conference.
Excellencies, dear participants and friends, ladies and gentlemen, extraordinary times need extraordinary arrangements. And this year's Tirana Connectivity Forum, as just mentioned by Mr. Hackaj, is characterized by the specialty to be implemented via some combination of conference and online networking. This dual character has become some real challenge to be done, but with unified efforts, as it was just mentioned, it could be realized. Traditionally, the organization of this conference lays at our honorable partner institution, Cooperation and Development Institute. And traditionally, it is again some joint commitment of CDI and German political foundations represented in Albania. Not to forget Regional Youth Cooperation Office and Euronews Albania. And due to the just running German EU presidency, it is some special appreciation of our project work, and here I mean all political foundations, that this event takes place in association with the German embassy in Tirana. In my opinion, this fact is some eye-catching sign of good partnership and common reliance. Connectivity is again the keyword of this conference, but this year connectivity has such new enlarged meaning, communication and dialogue mainly on digital basis, online networking because of the COVID situation. And this situation is also in relevance to youth connectivity in the Western Balkan countries. Basically, that means Hans Seidel Foundation, is regarding youth connectivity as some future-oriented strategic approach for peace and development in the region. And we have been supporting and promoting for several years this regional network as much as possible with our cooperation partners. This year, the COVID situation, of course, has some direct impact on all our efforts to maintain or enlarge team building activities. Activism, mobility, joint meetings, incentives and initiatives, all has been blocked, restricted or postponed. But we should not be discouraged by these limited possibilities to reach each other. We should regard the situation as some challenge to discover new, additional, alternative patterns of communication, alternative patterns of connectivity, but at the same time, we should also keep on traditional shapes of communication and cooperation, which had been proved successful and sustainable. And let me finally give some annotation, as Mr. Hackaj already mentioned it, to some side event on Friday afternoon, which is especially dealing with the youth connecting issues. And let me also mention that CDI and Hans Seidel Foundation tried in the last 4 years to specialize youth connectivity by cross-border platforms. And meanwhile, such a grassroots network of youth organizations in the whole region has been concretely implemented. We are just elaborating some so-called advocacy plans for the most pressing issues according to youth in the region. And in my opinion, this achievement is a good example of sustainable contribution of vivid cross-border cooperation. And in this sense, we will keep on. And by this now, I thank you for your attention and get back to Tirana.
It was great to hear our partner Stiftungs talking about what they do and what they expect, what we all expect from this forum. And now I am happy and proud to leave the floor to Ambassador Zingraf, the ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany in Tirana, to talk about this forum and about how they see the contribution of connectivity in their overall efforts in the region.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's great to have another Tirana Connectivity Forum, and I congratulate the organizers, the CDI and their media partner, Euronews Albania, for not allowing Corona to stop this highlight in the regional calendar. I also thank the partners and supporters of the forum, and especially the German political foundations, for their support. The Southeast European Six, and I like this term, are located in the inner courtyard of the European Union. And the strategical importance of the region for the EU has been stressed and has been recognized before the pandemic and during the pandemic. Corona has put a huge burden on all countries, all societies, all economies. During the pandemic, it has become clear again in the region that the EU is the closest and the most active and most reliable partner of the region. The already implemented a huge short-term active acute medical assistance programs of the Union. I cite alone for Albania 50 million euro, and the programmed mid and long-term economic and investment plan are a witness of this. EU member states have bilaterally complemented and accompanied these EU efforts, and Germany alone has invested nearly 5 billion euros in the SEE6 since the fall of the Iron Curtain. And a considerable amount of these 5 billion euros have been invested in infrastructure and connectivity projects. German government and its implementing organizations, agencies, GIZ and KfW, will continue to engage in and invest in the region in the perspective of the EU integration. Politically, Germany remains committed to the Berlin process, and we are looking forward to the upcoming Sofia summit, which should endorse the new action plan for the regional economic area. In the context of the current German EU presidency, the intense preparation for the first intergovernmental conferences for Albania and Northern Macedonia are ongoing. Regarding Albania, I'm still optimistic that the set of conditions that apply before the first conference are soon to be fulfilled. And I call again on all political actors and on all involved institutions to engage in this national priority. I'm looking forward to an active and lively discussion and stock-taking of the pandemic and looking to the future. And I'm happy to be here, and I wish you a good TCF.